is, she is a self-proclaimed sex educator here on YouTube with 1.4 million subscribers. The reason I'm making this video is because someone with an audience as large as Laci's should be held accountable. I can only imagine that she lures thousands of young, innocent viewers to her channel where, quite frankly, she posts irresponsible content.
Okay, I don't watch Laci's videos, right? But she talks about sex and sexuality. Those are things that we all have and we all ought to know about. People on the internet talk about things that you don't agree with. All of those are things that you're going to have to get over eventually.
Ah, man, where do I even start?
Please start with the facts. Please start with the facts. Please don't use the fallacy of emotional appeal.
So you're already being contemptible. I guess that's a nice place to start. But he never really explains how she's using the fallacy of emotional appeal.
The majority of Americans believe in the legal right to an abortion, particularly before 28 weeks of pregnancy.
No, this is flat out not true. Most Americans are against abortion in all or almost all circumstances. This is purposefully misleading. What we really want to look at is this middle figure, legal in a few circumstances. These are people who are pro-life. So when you look at it this way, 55% of people are against abortion in all or most of the time, and only 43% of people are for abortion all or most of the time. So Laci, only in your and other left-wing extremists' dishonest world is pro-choice more popular in America.
I think it's odd how you decide to use that poll instead of this poll asked by the same people that directly asked if people were pro-life or pro-choice, and in which more people identified as pro-choice. But it's pretty split, as it's pretty much always been.
Here, Laci is just another example of left-wing extremists distorting the facts in order to deceive you.
Can't you just show how she's wrong? Do you really have to add in this, she's distorting the facts, trying to deceive you?
In many parts of the US, abortion has been made so difficult to obtain that it's effectively the same as if it were illegal.
Again, I don't know if that's entirely true, Laci. There are 1.2 million abortions every single year. That equals 3,288 abortions every single day. Now, I'm no mathematician, but to me, that sounds like great legal access to abortion.
She didn't say that there weren't many people getting abortions. She said it's very difficult in some places. You can still have some places be difficult and have lots of abortions. Now, I'm not entirely sure about Laci's claim either, but I do know that there are some states that in order to have an abortion, you have to be given misleading information that is designed solely to discourage you, and you even have to go through medical procedures that aren't necessary in any way.
You know, I'm not trying to be presumptive, but something tells me that extremists are never going to be happy until abortions are just being thrown around for free.
Are you talking about universal healthcare? Because that's not actually a bad thing. And we're not extremists, but whatever.
Really? Sentience? Since when did sentience constitute whether or not you have rights? Look, sentience and consciousness have nothing to do with whether or not you have rights, sweetheart.
I disagree. I think that's exactly where rights come from. As far as I'm concerned, if you have the cognitive will to live, then you have the right to.
Let me give you an example. Let's say that a girl is at a party, and let's say at the party, the girl is drugged. She's unconscious. In that moment, she is not sentient. She does not have the ability to feel, to perceive, or to experience. In that moment, does she have rights?
Yes, she does, because she will regain consciousness. She can then feel violated and can still be harmed by it. You don't lose your rights as you lose consciousness, but you gain them when you first gain consciousness, and you lose them after you last lose consciousness, meaning after you die.
Of course she does. Just because she's drugged and unconscious, it doesn't mean that she can be raped. You know why? Because she still has rights. But why? Because your rights have nothing to do with your consciousness, your sentience, or your life experience. The reason you have rights is simply because you exist, just as much as a fetus exists.
So you're saying that the only criteria for having rights is to exist. By that logic, you can't kill any animals or plants because they have the right to live just as much as we do, because they also exist. So you can't eat anything because everything physically exists. My point is that this is a very overgeneralized non-answer as to why people have rights. Now, I believe that it comes down to this. If something has the will to live, then it should have the right to live. Now, this isn't the sole deciding factor, but it is the biggest one.
A woman who has sex for pleasure and not for babies has broken the rules. She sinned, and now she has to face the consequences of her actions. Consequences being pregnancy and childbirth.
First, I think it's absolutely disgusting that you call a baby a consequence. I dare you to go up to any mother on the street. I dare you to go up to her and to apologize for her consequence of a child. I dare you to go up to your own mother and apologize for being a consequence, for being a burden on her life. Simply not true. No child is a consequence, ever.
Okay, let's look up the definition of consequence. A result or effect of an action or condition. That's a baby. Childbearing is the effect of getting pregnant.
Please don't use the fallacy of emotional appeal. Second, what type of mental midget is so consumed by their own hatred, by their own bias, that they somehow think that the pro-life movement equates to punishing women?
Okay, obviously I've never been through childbirth, but here's my understanding of it. Childbirth is done with contractions. So imagine a Charlie horse, but several Charlie horses in your abdomen, trying to push a child through a hole that is smaller than your nostril. That's essentially what childbirth is. And it's something that women don't have to go through if they don't want to. But you're trying to force that on women for the sake of a being that has yet to have any consciousness or any cognition and has little more life than a jellyfish. And that's not to mention the medical bills, which are insanely high because the US doesn't have universal healthcare, as does virtually all of the developed world.
Funny that you mentioned science, because you never mentioned science once in your video to defend your points. The scientific and the medical literature tells us that life begins at conception. End of argument.
Okay, true, an individual's life does begin at conception. But when an egg is fertilized, that zygote isn't more alive than is a bacteria, and we kill those on a daily basis. A baby starts out as a blob of cells. That blob of cells doesn't have human rights, because it isn't a person. But an infant does, because it is. And somewhere along the line, it gains those human rights. And I'm not exactly sure where that line is. But I do believe that forcing a woman through childbirth, who has already decided that she cannot take care of a child, is cruel and unnecessary.